Essentially, what I want anyone listening to this song to get from it is I want you to be able to be encouraged by it and speak life over yourself as well, and know that you are one of one, you are unique. No one else is you, right? Like, of course, as a woman, I'm writing it from a woman's perspective, right? And so, of course, it's for my women, but of course, for my men as well. Like, it's important for all of us to affirm ourselves and pour into ourselves and speak life over ourselves the same way we would want someone else to do that for us.
I've been hurting but with purpose. I've been working on myself. I've been looking in the mirror like queen ain't nobody else. Better than you, hotter than you. Better than you, hotter than you. Better than you, hotter than you. Girl, you top two and you not two.
Kinfolk, what is good? It's your girl Ken, and I welcome you again to the Keys and Seeds podcast. And whether this is your first time here or if it's not, I just want to take the time to reintroduce myself, and you will know why that's important here in a few seconds. So, my name is Kendall, and first and foremost, most importantly, I am a child of God. I am a follower of Jesus Christ, and I hope that you would be able to tell that, considering the direction that my recent content has been going in, right? But in addition to me being a follower of Christ, right, I am also a writer, right? God has gifted me in a way where I know that my words are a part of my purpose. And for as long as I can remember, I have always been a writer. And so over the years, right, that has shown up in a number of ways, right? I used to want to be an author. I wrote poetry, and now, right, a lot of people know me for writing music. I am a recording artist and a performing artist, and I am primarily within the genre of hip hop. So, in other words, I'm a rapper, but I also sing as well. And so, a lot of people who follow this podcast have been following me for my music, right? But I am also aware that there's people who follow this podcast and might be unaware of the fact that I make music, right? And so I've been making music longer than I've been in this intentional place of growing in my relationship with God, right? So not everything I've been putting out has been clean, right? But I've also just been very transparent throughout my music about me wrestling with my faith. And I don't think I've ever made like any type of music that's been like super like left and like out there, right? Like my music has been, like my outlet, right? Like who I am as a person is very much so in my music, right? And I've never been someone that's been super like straight away from God, if that makes sense. But yeah, as I've been growing closer to God, however, and music is something that God has still gifted me to do. I am now in this place of me being even more intentional with the music that I pen and record and release as well. And so with that said, I have a new single out titled Affirmations. And first and foremost, if you support good music, if you support independent artists, if you support clean music with a great message and a message that glorifies God, I first and foremost encourage you to purchase the single. You can buy the single directly from me at kindlemusic.bandcamp.com. That is KYNDL kindlemusic.bandcamp bandcamp.com. kindlemusic.bandcamp.com has all of the music that I've been releasing throughout the years, and it even has some verses and some things that are not on streaming platforms such as Apple Music, Spotify, etc., etc. So if you support independent artists and you actually want to purchase the music and support the artist directly, I encourage you to purchase Affirmations from me directly off of my Bandcamp. However, it is also on Apple Music, Spotify, etc. But with that said, this podcast episode is actually going to be a conversation about that song. And I'm super excited because considering the direction that my recent content has been going in, right? I haven't really had the opportunity to really talk about my music and my artistry, right? Like, this podcast is where faith, healing, and artistry meets, right? And so as of recently, the content here has been about, me growing in my faith and, me healing emotionally. However, I am also an artist. And so because I recently released a new single, I figured, why not talk about it, right? And so I'm excited to give you guys more insight on how this single came about. And but also too, I'm excited for just future conversations that will be a deeper dive into the music that I've been releasing over the years, because I haven't had a chance to really have conversations about the music that I've been releasing over the years. But also too, as I've grown emotionally, as I've grown spiritually, right, I'm excited to provide a different perspective and greater revelations and insight to add to the conversation of who I was at that time and where I was when I penned the songs that I've released up until this point, because I am not at all the same person that I have been as I have been releasing music over the years. And so I'm super excited, one, to be able to release a new single that I feel reflects who and where I am now today and where I'm going. But I'm also excited to just go back down memory lane and reflect on the music that I've been putting out and tap back into where I was, who I was at that time, but also to give y'all greater revelation and insight as I've matured and I've grown past those versions of myself that I was and where I was when I created those songs. And so that's what you guys can expect from episodes to come. And so without further ado, let's get into it, man. Okay, so first and foremost, I just gotta be all the way transparent with y'all, right? Affirmations is a song that I wrote and recorded in 2020. Oh my gosh. Yes, it's 2024, and I am just now releasing a song that I wrote and recorded in 2020. And if you're an artist, you can relate and you can understand, or at least most of y'all, right? I feel like every artist's creative process is different, right? But for a lot of us artists, this is me putting y'all who are not music artists up on game as to how we maneuver, right? A lot of us artists, right, and y'all artists, y'all can relate, right? A lot of us tend to create music that we end up sitting on. And I feel like there's a number of reasons as to why we sit on the music that we create, right? But I know for me personally, especially as an independent artist, I have always been hyper aware of the fact that I cannot just release music, right? Right? Because, how can I say this? If you're an independent artist and you're doing music for more than just a hobby, right? There's a method to the madness, right? Like, you cannot just record a song and then release it and have no type of rollout plan or marketing plan or anything like that, and then expect for it to just put you in a better position than where you are now, right? So that's me also letting y'all know, like, who are not artists and are just, consumers and fans of the music, right? Like, there has to be a plan that goes along with the music that we record and we release, right? And so for me personally, I've always known that I wanted to do music full time, and I knew that I couldn't just release music just for the sake of releasing it and then expecting it to do something great if I didn't put a plan, in motion with it. But I've also too have been, I don't know, I guess like a bit of a perfectionist type, if you will, right? Like, I want things to be released and presented to the world in a certain way, right? And so I have always been very big on, having a visual and, like just making sure that the cover art is, up to par. Because I do feel like sometimes too, a lot of us, we not even gonna press play on something if it's not, you feel me, first capturing our eye and attention visually, right? And so like there is like a method to the madness and like a plan that has to go with releasing the song, right? And so just to provide more context to where I was when I recorded this song to begin with, right? Like I said, I recorded this song in 2020. And we all know what was the year 2020, right? The pandemonium, the pepperoni, the Panda Express, the pandemic, right? And I don't mean to like make a joke of it or like make light of it, knowing that like real people died in it. But yeah, like that was a hot mess. That was a ghetto time, right? For a lot of us, right? Thankfully, I never caught COVID. I never lost anyone close to me, but I know that there are people who did. And so I don't want to make a joke out of that at all. But with that said, 2020 was also just a like weird period of time for me personally, because I was also graduating from college during 2020, right? And so 2020 was like this year of everyone, like sitting down and, being in the house. And I don't know about y'all, like anybody who has gone to college, know college is very stressful. It's a very trying time and season in your life, right? And so when it was time for me to graduate college, I'm like, what y'all mean the world is what you know how many tears I done cried for this degree? How many what? No. So the fact that I'm now graduating in the midst of all of this, I'm like, yo, the fact that I know that music is what I want to do, college, school is about to be out the way. I'm about to have all of the time and, the mental capacity to be creative and, really put you feel me? Put my foot on the gas, right? I'm like, what do you mean we about to be on lockdown? What? So I just know during that time, I just was like, yo, exactly what I just said. School about to be out the way. I know that music is what I want. I'm about to put my foot on the gas, right? Like, I don't know what y'all talking about, but yeah, like, I'm gonna go. And so I remember during that time, I had ended up putting out an EP titled Capped. I literally took some graduation photos, obviously, to celebrate that milestone in my life, but then I also used those photos as promo for that EP. Right? Literally presenting to y'all in my music who I am in real life and what I'm going through, right? I just graduated college. I'm about to drop an EP to celebrate that, and I'm about to title it Capped. Only time I ever capped is when I graduated. Facts. You feel me? And so Capped was the EP that really like turned me up even more, right? There was some momentum that I had going as an artist, and there were people who were tuned into what I had going on. But as an artist, being able to say at that you graduated college, that was big. That was major. And if you ask me, Capped was a solid EP, top to bottom. But that's another conversation for another day. And so after I dropped Capped, of course, it's still 2020, the pandemic, we on lockdown. And because because school was not taking up so much of, my like focus and attention mentally, right? And because, I was on lockdown, with the rest of the world, it did put me in this place of self-reflection, right? And I also went through a breakup in 2020. And I feel like as far as like the mental and emotional and the spiritual growth that a lot of people went through in 2020, I feel like I went through that a little bit, but I still was not as self-aware then as I am now. And I was not as locked in with God then as I am now. So I kind of went through a dark night of the soul, but like that was also my first year taking shrooms too. If you know, you know. So like I kind of like experienced it and went through it a little bit, but like, baby, I still had some tower moments to go through after that. But I say that to say I was starting to get into that place of, like sitting with myself and facing myself, even though there were still levels of myself as far as depth that I still had not reached at that point. But I say that to say after Capped, I ended up putting out another EP that same year titled Quran. And that's another conversation for another day as well. But I provide that context to say around that time I was just writing a bunch of music. I ended up writing Affirmations. And I ended up not releasing it during that time because I didn't feel like it fit a part of either of those two projects. And I don't remember releasing a bunch of singles at that time. And so I never released that song because I never felt like it fit with either of those projects. But I also too didn't know how I felt about the song, right? Like I feel like a lot of sounding country. Let's get our words together again. A lot of songs I write, I feel like I like off rip know if I love the song enough to release it. I just feel like now was just not the time, or I just don't care for the song, or you feel me, for whatever reason, whether I feel like it's too personal or what, I'm just not gonna put it out. Because there are songs that I've written that I feel like are super, 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 super personal, and I have not built up the courage to put out. Affirmations, however, I didn't really know how I felt about the song. I didn't love it enough to put it out at that time, but I also didn't hate it to scrap it. So it's just been a song that I've been sitting on for obviously years. And it's not the only song that I've been sitting on throughout the years. However, I will say though, as I am now in a place where I'm holding myself more accountable to God and I am really taking my relationship with God more serious, I will say that some of the songs that I've been sitting on, really all of the songs except for Affirmations, I have been sitting on. I'm like, who I am now and where I am today, like where I'm going, I wouldn't even put this song out because it is not the best representation of who I am now and where I'm going, right? And so there are some other songs that I was sitting on where I'm like, yeah, absolutely not. I'm not putting this out. But Affirmations, I'm like, I feel like this is still, you feel me, a solid song. And so knowing who and where I am now, I'm like, I really feel like I should do something with this song. And me like sitting with the song, I realized I kind of didn't like the song when I first wrote it. And I didn't want to do anything with it at that time because I really was ahead of my time when I wrote that song, right? Like, with a song titled Affirmations, right? Like, first and foremost, if you're even listening to this episode and you ain't even heard the song yet, I'm gonna need you to pause this and go listen to it, right? Because we really finna get into it, right? But with that said, because the song is titled Affirmations and the song is what it is, right, as far as the message, I quite literally wrote that song because it is a song that I needed to write. Like, I myself, right? Like, I myself needed to write this song for myself, and I needed to write a song that I myself will be able to hear and listen back to, knowing that I wrote it, right? Because it's one thing to receive, words of affirmations from, others, and, have others pour into you, and, all of the things. But it's something, more powerful, and it's something totally different when you are the one pouring into yourself, right? And so I say that to say that I wrote that song at that time because I quite literally needed to write that song, like, for myself. But I did not like the song because I didn't believe what it was I was writing at that time. But I also too felt like the song was kind of corny. I ain't gonna lie. Like, I love my face, I love my mind, I love my frame, I love my grind. I'm just like, is this corny? Like, I don't know. Like, you feel me? Like, I didn't hate the song, but I also didn't love it either. But I also knew part of that disconnect was I didn't really believe what it was I was writing at that time. And so again, I just sat on it, never did anything with it until now. Boom, it's 2024. And I'm like, whole time, this is a really great and powerful song. Like, considering, the message and, who and where I am now, the fact that I've been working on myself, the fact that I've been coming more into agreement with who God says I am and how God sees me, I'm like, I know that I need to do something with this song, right? And so even prior to this year, I would say, like, towards the end of 2023, I knew that I wanted to do something with this song. And so I'm like, well, because it's affirmations and, the song is essentially about me, it's for me, right? Like, and to give myself some more time to, develop a rollout plan for it. I'm going to just drop it next year on my birthday or around my birthday. So this was kind of already a thought that I had brewing in my mind at the end of last year, right? And so obviously too, at the time of this recording, your girl birthday is coming up. I'm a September baby. My birthday is on the 15th. Please wish me a happy birthday. If you know, you know. So if you're listening to this and you know when my birthday is, I expect a happy birthday from you. Thank you. But yeah, so I'm like, I know I'm gonna probably like drop it like either on my birthday or around my birthday, right? And so that was already like a thought that I had brewing in my mind. But 2024, now rolls around, and February of 2024 specifically, right? Here in Indianapolis, really? Here in Indianapolis. I know how to pronounce the city I'm from. Not too much on me. Here in Indianapolis. I really be wondering what be going on in my mind subconsciously. Like, when I say certain things and when I pronounce it the way that I pronounce it. Anywho. Here in Indianapolis, February of 2024, we ended up hosting All Star. And so, of course, that was like a really big thing. And so I ended up performing All Star Weekend. And so shout out to Treese. Because Treese ended up organizing essentially like a pop-up version of Treese, which is a festival that we have here every year in August. They ended up having like a more scaled down version of that for All Star. And so I was one of the artists that performed that weekend. And so in preparation of that, we ended up doing, of course, some promo, some photo shoots and, things of that nature. And so from me, or through me being connected, with that opportunity, I remember when we did the photo shoot. Shout out to Jake with the shot. And we're going to get more into how Jake plays a role in the release of this song. And we're going to get into what's on my shirt. But yeah, so through me being connected with that opportunity, I end up connecting with Jake with the shot. And Jake is a photographer here who's super great at what he does. And he essentially put a bug in my ear that he was working on a project titled Visual Aural or Visual Aural. Visual Aural. I don't know why I keep wanting to say Aural. I pronounce a lot of stuff wrong. Forgive me. Visual Aural. Visual Aural is the name of the project. And this is actually a shirt with the cover art on it. And on the back, it has the track list for the project. It's essentially a mixtape and photo book. Hence the name of the project. He created it as a way for people to experience music while also experiencing it visually, right? And so he had kind of put a bug in my ear that weekend while we were working. And, you know, he had let me know that he was working on this project and he wanted me to be one of the artists featured a part of the project. And I'm like, of course, right? Like, first and foremost, Jake and I had been meaning to work together because he had put together another project titled While They Slept. And it was a photo book of, you know, a bunch of different hip hop artists in the city. And he had reached out to me to be a part of it. But I remember at that time I was still living in Atlanta. And so I'm like, dang, like I really want to be a part of it, but there is no way for me to come back home. Like, it was just a lot going on. If you know, you know. I've kind of already hinted at it, but Atlanta, it was a very ghetto time in my life. Atlanta was my Egypt. If you know, you know. And so when he reached out, I'm like, dang, I want to be a part of it, but I'm not in the city. Like, there's no way for me to get back right now. Like, now is just not a good time. And so me and him, or him and I rather, we had been meaning to work together. Right. And so once he had mentioned to me that he was working on another project, I'm like, one, no brainer. Yes. Right. But the fact that he said that the timeline for essentially, you know, it's a project that he wanted to release around August or September. In my mind, I'm like, that's perfect because I already have this song that I'm sitting on. Right. And so in my mind, I'm like, why not just partner with you for the release of this song and then, you know, essentially just revamp it and give it new life. So it is this new thing that's special, you know, for the project, but it's also too, you feel me, a song that's not just a 2020 song, but a 2024 song. You feel me? Like a 2024 version of the song that I had been sitting on. Right. And so that's essentially how the rollout for the song began to start brewing. And so, boom. I already knew that I wanted to do something with this song around September. And then there was a conversation had with Jake about him wanting me to be a part of a project that he was putting out around August or September. And so with this project, of course, as I already mentioned, he wanted it to be a photo book, but he also wanted it to be a mixtape. And so I already knew that he wanted me to have a song a part of this project. And so I'm like, of course, you feel me? Like, even if I have to write a new song, right? Like, we've been meaning to work together. Like, this was something that has been supposed to happen, right? But also, too, I know that I actually have a song that I'm going to do something with anyways. And so in my head, I already knew that it was going to be Affirmations, this song that I already planned on doing something with. I knew that Affirmations was just going to be a song that I then allowed to be a part of something bigger, something greater. And so with that said, me knowing that I obviously wanted to revamp the song for it to be, you know, a song from 2020 with, you know, 2024 flavor, I went back and I wrote another verse for the song. And so the song itself was originally just the first hook, the first verse, and the second hook. That was the song. And it literally was nothing more than that. So the version of the song that you hear now, right? What was added was the intro, tuning into a radio station type effect. That was added. The bridge into the second verse was added, with the saxophone, and the second verse itself was added along with another hook at the end. But the song originally was just the first hook, the first verse, and the second hook. That was the original version of Affirmations. And so me knowing that I wanted to do something now with this song in 2024, I'm like, I gotta add something new to it. I gotta add something, you feel me? Something fresh to it. And so I'm like, why not just write another verse? And so I did. And from there, I was like, yes, like, I love this song now, right? Because the thing about it is, too, is the fact that, like I said, I did not believe what it was I was writing at the time that I first wrote this song. And so as I've grown, as I've matured, as I've healed, as I have become a version of myself that can listen to what it is I wrote and, like really start to believe it, right? Like I already was becoming more of a fan of the song itself. But to also approach the song with, or, as a version of myself that I now am, right? Like, I feel like it was important for me to add that second verse to it anyways, right? Like, I would have been selling myself short, and I would have been selling you guys short, as the audience, had I just released the 2020 version of that song, right? One, I knew I was going to have to re-record it either way, because the original version of it more so was just a demo, right? Like I had recorded that song, but then I just never went back and did anything with it because, again, I didn't know if I was going to do anything with it. So I really only had one version, rough mix of the song, right? Like it wasn't multiple mixes and a master or anything like that. It essentially was just a demo. So I'm like, if I know I'm going to do something with this song, I'm going to have to go back in and re-record this anyways, right? And if when you re-recording a song, sometimes you can't even really capture the authentic energy that you once had. But with this song, it was different, right? Because I'm now in a place where I actually believe what it is I'm writing. Into the original version had curse words. And so in the original version, I'm like, you that B word, you that B word, you that B word. Now I'm like, no, you're a queen, you're a lady, you're a woman. You feel me? Like, let's clean this up. So either way it goes, I was going to have to re-record this song. And so as I re-recorded it, I cleaned it up. And so it's a clean song that the kiddos and, whoever, the elderly, whoever, it's a song for everybody. It's a song for everybody because it's a song, one that I wrote for myself, of course, me affirming myself. But essentially what I want anyone listening to this song to get from it is I want you to be able to be encouraged by it and speak life over yourself as well, and know that you are one of one, you are unique. No one else is you, right? Like, of course, as a woman, I'm writing it from a woman's perspective, right? And so, of course, it's for my women, but of course, for my men as well. Like, it's important for all of us to affirm ourselves and pour into ourselves and speak life over ourselves the same way we would want someone else to do that for us. And so that's essentially, the message, that I want you all to get from it. But yeah, so as I was re-recording the song, I'm like, I know I'm gonna add this second verse to it. You feel me? Like, how can I, you feel me, bring something different to it? And so because majority of the song is, melodic and me singing, I'm like, I'm finna do a little 1-2 with the bars, right? Because as I said, I rap, but I also sing. And so because the song is, primarily, me singing and me leaning into harmonies, I'm like, let me add a little 1-2 with the bars, Not only that, but I knew that the project that the song would be a part of would be primarily, rap, right? Like Jake reached out to me as a hip hop artist, letting it be known that this would be a hip hop project, right? He reached out to me as well as some other hip hop artists in the city. Shout out to all of the artists that are a part of the project. I don't want to start naming names and then forget someone because I don't have the actual track list in front of me right now. But yeah, so like I know he reached out to me because I'm a hip hop artist, but he also let it be known that I didn't have to feel restricted or pressured into heavily being in a rap bag, right? Like he's aware of the fact that I sing, and so he's like, I really just want you to do you. And that essentially was the conversation he had with all of the artists. He's like, I know that it's going to be something great if I just trust y'all to do y'all. And so that's essentially how the project came about. And he's been rolling out the project with each song on the project being its own individual single. And so I've been keeping up with the singles that have been released. And so like I have an idea of what the overall project sounds like, but I'm so excited. I'm super excited to hear how the overall project is sounding and how it came about, because even from what I've heard from the artists who are also the other artists that are also a part of the project, I believe they all brought something that I didn't even expect for them to bring, right? Like when you're familiar with the artist, I feel like sometimes it's easy for you to sort of already have an idea of what you can expect from that artist. But of course, because they're an artist, right? Like there's going to be times where they do something or they present something where you're like, oh, this is hard, but I wasn't expecting this. Like I feel like it's been that feeling from every artist that has released up until this point. And so I'm super excited about the project. Again, the shirt that I have on is the cover art for the project, and on the back of the shirt it has the track list. The project itself is releasing September 14th at Naptown Thrift. You can get a copy of the mixtape printed out on CDs, and you can also get a copy of the actual photo book, which is really dope because it's not just photos of us, but it's photos of us with like excerpts of our lyrics paired with the photos. And so it's really dope. And just shout out to Jake for just doing something different, because I don't know, like I feel like with photography specifically, right, like it's easy to just expect just photos on Instagram, or offer prints, or what I mean, like things of that nature upon request. But I remember Jake had mentioned, he was like, if there was no Instagram, right, like if this was not a way for me to post and present my work to people, would I still be a photographer? I remember he had said something along those lines, and because he had that thought, that's how this project itself came about. And I was born in 98, right? And so I'm still fairly young, but I do collect vinyls, I do collect CDs, and I do remember vividly still growing up as a kid, and riding around with my family and witnessing the fact that they had like these leather bookcases of just CDs, and what I mean, like I remember a little bit of that experience of purchasing a CD and flipping through the CD inserts, and looking at the photos and reading the lyrics as you're looking at the photos. And so to know that Jake decided to come up with the concept for this project, and the project, is what it is and it's meant to be experienced in the way that it's meant to be experienced. I just think that's super dope. And so shout out to Jake. Shout out again to all of the artists that are a part of the project. But yeah, so the actual project will be releasing September 14th at Naptown Thrift. We are coming up on it this weekend at the time of this recording. So depending on what time you tune into this, you feel me, like the event may have already passed, but I know at the time of this recording the event is approaching. And the event is a day before my birthday, and so it's also a celebratory moment, for me celebrating my 26th birthday. And so yeah, so when he reached out to me and asked me to be a part of this project, I'm like, one, yes, like we've been meaning to work with each other. I've been wanting to be a part of a project of yours. Like, I'm honored that you would even have me in mind, right? But the fact too that, like I said, I already knew that I was going to do something with this song. And then too, like, it's around my birthday. I didn't even know that he was going to have a release show for the project, right? And so we're going to be meeting at Naptown Thrift to flip through the photos and, listen to the project. But there's also going to be some performances. It's not going to be a performance from every artist on the project because I knew that was going to be a lot to organize, but I am honored and I am grateful to be one of 3 artists from the project that he selected to perform at this release event. And I do believe that the 3 of us that he chose represents, like, just the different sounds and, flavors of, the project itself. The 3 of us artists that he chose, we bring something different. And of course all of the artists on the project bring something different, but I say this to say the project itself is a hip-hop project, right? But there's different styles and sounds within that genre that are presented on that hip-hop and on that project. And so I believe he also did a great job with choosing just 3 artists because that's all he had, right? Like, if you could only choose 3 artists from the overall project to represent the diversity of the project, right? Like, I'm honored to be one of those artists selected. But I also believe, just speaking for myself, I make sense to be one of the artists selected because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I'm one of the very few artists that's singing on the project as well. And so, yeah, when he also said that he was going to do a show for the project and the show just so happens to fall on the weekend of my birthday, I'm like, this is nothing but God, because y'all know me, like, I'm big on alignment, right? And like everything is spiritual, right? Like, there is no coincidences. And so the fact that I'm even a part of this project and I'm one of the artists selected to perform and the show is on the weekend of my birthday, I'm like, we finna go up. I'm so excited and I'm so honored. And so, yeah, with that said, let me find my phone because I just wanted to pull up the lyrics and just go through the lyrics really quickly. And yeah, this is the behind the music rap genius type, you feel me, portion of this episode, right? And so the hook, is essentially, me looking at the mirror. Looking at myself in the mirror saying, like, I love my face. Like, I love everything that I see. I love even the things that I see beyond what I'm seeing with my physical eyes. And, I'm hyping myself up and I'm letting myself know, like, you're her. Like, you're that girl, right? And we all should feel that way about ourselves because God made all of us in his image and there's only one version of ourselves. And as someone who has been a recovering people pleaser, right? Like, I've tried to morph myself into different versions of myself that I felt like I needed to be in order to be, chosen and accepted, just for the sake of survival, right? As I'm learning how to not be in survival mode anymore, and I've really started to come into awareness of my uniqueness and come into agreement with who God has called me specifically to be, I've really been aware of the fact that when I don't lean into that, I not only rob myself, but I rob others of experiencing something in someone unique, right? Like, there's already a version of whoever out here you could try and imitate, right? And because there's only one version of them, you will never truly be like that person. But because there's only one version of all of us, right? That should encourage you even more to lean into all of who you authentically are. Because there's only one you. Right? Like, you cannot be someone else and no one else can be you. And so your strength and your superpower is leaning into all of who you authentically are. And because God has created all of us, unique, and God has given us unique talents and gifts and abilities, right? We're also robbing other people when we aren't leaning into all of who we authentically are, because there's something that we uniquely have to offer other people that other people need. And so when you aren't leaning into all of who you actually are, you aren't able to actually show up and be of benefit to other people. Even though that's your goal when you're trying to, let's say, people please, right? And so to know that I've had like this awareness is crazy. I'm like, dang, all I had to do was be myself. I might not be for everybody, but through me leaning more into who I am, I know that I'll be even more aligned with the people who are for me. Yeah, that's crazy. And it's really like simple things like that really just be hitting me in the head sometimes. Like, wow, like it took me 26 years for me to come into this revelation. Wow. But I'm grateful because I know that there's some people out there who still have not had that click for them. But yeah, I'm 101. It ain't nobody out here like me. And number 2, if I love me, I don't care who don't like me, because Jesus loved me. Jesus loves me. This I know, for the Bible tells me so. Yeah, y'all remember that song? What? It don't matter who don't like us or who don't love us. Of course, to some extent, right? Like, when we think about the character we have and, what other people can say about us, right? Like, to some extent, yes, we should care. Yes, we should care how other people perceive us and what other people think of us. But we should not hold that on a pedestal, right? Like, I remember I used to make people and how they think about me and how they feel about me, I used to make that such an idol in my life. Like, I used to care more about what other people think about me and how other people feel about me more than I care about what God think of me. And that's crazy. That's crazy. And so if that's you, I pray that you are released from that bondage in the name of Jesus. If you don't care more and only care about who God says you are, but yeah, second verse, I had to put Bible in that. Fearfully, wonderfully made, and is, and am, I am. I remember, in my song Drought that I also wrote in 2020, I mentioned picking up my crown because I was sleeping on myself, right? And so, as I said, like, during that time, like, I kind of was already on this path, but like, And of course, you feel me, I still have not arrived, right? Like, I'm still going to continue to grow and evolve and all of the things. But I recently put two and two together that in this song I mentioned, fixing my crown. And I had that realization that it's a callback to the fact that I mentioned that in 2020 in another song, right? And so there's going to be times where our crown might slip. We might sleep on ourselves a little bit, but we should not stay there. We should not stay there. We all are made in the image of God. We all are beautiful. We all were created with purpose. And so it is up to us to remind ourselves of that and partner with God and what his word says so that we may be able to confidently walk in that each and every day. There's a lyric that I say where I say, I'm not looking at wind, I'm looking within. And that came from, I don't know what scripture it is off the top of my head, or who it was either. Was it Peter? It was somebody Jesus had called to walk on water, like towards them. Jesus told somebody to get out the boat and walk towards him on water. And I just vividly remember in that passage of scripture, it says they ended up looking at the wind. And that's what scared them enough to not continue walking. And when you really think about it, it's like, bro, what was you looking at? Because you can't even see wind. Right? But like, as we all know, right? Or I feel like most of us know, if you don't know, right? Like, not everything in the Bible is meant to be taken at, face value, right? Like, the Bible is very poetic. And so when you really sit and think about it, it's like, what was the wind you're looking at, right? Like, you're looking at illusions. You're looking at, just anything that's around you that's meant to distract you and place some type of fear within you, even if that fear that you're perceiving is not even real, right? And so that's where that lyric came from. And I, essentially, like, strategically and purposely put that in there because I know for me personally, it's easy for me to overthink and, like, just create fears that aren't even there, right? Like, over the years, I have looked at, things that are placed around me to distract me. I have looked at, just illusions of my own mind, and that has kept me stuck and paralyzed. But I know that, especially at this point in my life, essentially am just called to not only keep my focus on God, but to look within myself, right? Because I have to be able to check the perspective that I have of the world around me and question why my perspective is my perspective, right? And that's also why I'm in therapy, right? Like, I'm so happy that I've learned how to question the way in which I think and the way in which I see things, because a lot of times, you feel me, like, it's easy for us as humans with our brains to fill in the blanks and, jump to conclusions and, just formulate, just these images and these fears that aren't even real, right? And so, yeah, don't look at the wind, look within. And keep your focus on God. Use your discernment when choosing your friends and whoever it is you find yourself connected to, and have boundaries. Again, as a recovering people pleaser, OMG. Jeez Louise. Setting boundaries has been something super big for me. And that's another conversation for another day. But I'm proud of myself for healing the attachment wounds that I've had and healing, just my attachment style. Like I've been able to witness in real time become someone who is more securely attached. And I have to give all glory to God, honestly, truly, because who I am today and in the work in which I know has been taking place within me, in my mind, in my heart, just the way in which I move, the way in which I see the world around me, the heart that I have, man, what, as someone who used to be very prideful, very unforgiving, very, oh, okay. If it's up, it's stuck, right? Like, who I am today, I did not get here like just off of my own strength. Not at all. Not at all. And I have to give all glory to God. And so I truly do pray, hope and pray that y'all are encouraged to really lock in with that man above and know that rejection is merely protection and redirection for something greater. Literally, as I go back to speaking on attachment wounds, it don't matter what attachment style you have, anxious, avoidant, disorganized. I had both. And they was fighting to the death, right? Like, very much so disorganized, confused, double-minded. Like, at the root of all of that spiritually is rejection. And I am here to let you know that God can heal that. You just gotta let him in. And yeah, there's a little part that I also mentioned in here where I said pinky up like Dr. Evil, pretty girl still regardless. If you know, you know. Who, that's another conversation for another day too. But as I mentioned, I went to college and I did want to pledge to a sorority. I pledged to a few organizations, actually. I pledged to I'm not even gonna get into that, but if you know, you know, right? There's a sorority, where they put their pinkies up, and that was kind of just a play on words, right? Like, those are organizations of idol worship. And again, that's another conversation for another day, right? But that was also just a reminder to me of the fact that at one point in time, that I wanted to pledge and, feel included. And, I thought that that's where my identity was, right? And, people pledge for different reasons, right? But that pretty much was just a reminder to me that, like, girl, you're that girl regardless. Right? Like, you don't need them organizations. You don't need those friends that really you're unequally yoked with, right? Because a lot of times too, you don't even know who you're pledging with and where they stand in their relationship with God, right? But again, if you know, you know. God does not want us pledging to any secret society. And God does not want our identity found in anything or anyone other than him. And so with that said, I also just remind myself of my place, here in the market, here on this earth, right? Like, I have something unique and necessary to give this world. And unless I truly lean into that, I will forever be lost and confused, and there will be other people who will also be lost and confused because they are not able to be in alignment with someone that God purposed them to be in alignment with, right? And so whatever it is you have inside of you, whoever it is God has called you to be, I pray that you are encouraged to really lean into that, and to lean into that by speaking life over yourself, because there's power in the tongue. There's life or death with the words that we speak, including the words that we speak over ourselves. And so, again, this was a song that I really just penned for myself. But I offered it to the world because I know that it wasn't just for me. And there have been people who have reached out to me and told me that that song was also for them. And all glory to God, right? Like, I'm merely a vessel. That's what I do it for. And that's why I am now even more intentional with the songs that I write and I record and I release. And yeah, I'm just excited to see how God will continue to use me within my gift of music. And yeah, shout out to Legendary P for being the producer of the song. My brother, whenever you hear that legendary tag, like he's done a lot of my beats. And so shout out to P always. Shout out to Jake with a shot, of course, again. And shout out to Rob Dixon because he is the amazingly talented saxophone player that added the little pizzazz to it. Not even little. Let me take that back. When they be like, oh, I see your little, what's little about it, sis? Nothing. Okay. But yeah, and shout out to P too because he surprised me with that. He that was actually his idea. He knows that I've been wanting to do more with live instrumentation. And so he's like, we need a sax player on this. And I'm like, let's go crazy, right? But like, that wasn't in my budget. I'm like, yeah, I want to do that. But like, realistically, I don't know. And then too, like, there was a cutoff date that Jake needed the song by. And we really was cutting it close. And he just surprised me and had a sax player show up and add to it. Shout out to Mitch. My engineer, Mitch at 416 Wabash. If you need somewhere to record in the city, I used to gatekeep, but that man gonna forever stay booked. So I gotta get in where I fit in anyway. So shout out to Mitch at 416 Wabash. He also had a role to play in that as well. He knew a guy, and he's like, "Hey, I have this song. Can you just, add a, 1-2 to it?" And of course, and it was crazy is I wasn't even there when he did it. I wish I would have been there to witness it. But apparently, it was just a conversation of, Rob wanting to know, what the message of the song is, right? Like, I'm not going to add no pizzazz to a song, with a crazy out there message. But, Mitch was like, nah, this is the song, whoop. He kind of just heard it a little bit. And he like, okay, boom. Added his 1-2 and was like, is that cool? Is that good? And apparently it was some different variations that was captured, and I was surprised with the version of it that y'all hear now. And I was like, I love it. I was so excited. I was over the moon, like filled with joy, because it really took me taking a step back from music, knowing that God wanted my focus and attention to more so be on his pod, to then realize that that's still a gift that God has given me. And so once I felt, God was giving me the opportunity to, step back into that, it was just so beautiful how it came about, just with the rollout, partnering with Jake and, the song, having more of a moment created around it when I had nothing planned other than releasing it around my birthday, performing the weekend of my birthday at that. Having Rob, the sax player, come through and add, just some magic to it. Just the way in which this release came about, man, like it was nothing but God. And I'm so grateful. And I'm so grateful that, God, is continuing to use me, but I'm grateful that it's out and you guys are able to listen to it and experience it. And I pray that it blesses you just as much as it blesses me. And Affirmations is out now everywhere. I love y'all. I will catch y'all in the next episode. Bye.
Fearfully, wonderfully made. Ain't talking about paper when I say I'm paid. I keep my crown up, no, I can't be afraid. But when it start tilting, I call on his name. Ain't looking at wind, I'm looking speaking within. I'm talking to her, yeah, I'm speaking to Ken. Make a mistake, get up and try again. Use your discernment when choosing your friends.